Hey, friends, how are you? I trust that the Lord has kept you well. Such a joy to be here with you as we start a brand new conversation on leadership that we are calling Shape. But before we dive into that, I want to thank you so much for being here today. And I can see a number of you already in the comment section. Alani was here as early as 8:43 saying, I cannot wait. Brian says, I'm already here with my notebook and pen, super excited. In fact, double excited because Pastor Ken is in the house. Super excited. Brian is ready to go. Patrick, this is what Patrick says. Looking forward to the start of these conversations on leadership and the awesome Pastor Ken. And Arthur is sending his shout outs to the entire community saying, hello, Pastor Brian. Thank you. Counting down. We cannot wait. It's going to be an absolutely awesome time as we begin to talk leadership. And I promise you that we have awesome guests coming, and I cannot wait. Our guest is very ready and raring to go. And I just want to let you know, if you haven't, would you please like this video, because when you do that, it's able to go to so many more people and they're able to learn from what we are learning together. But remember to also share the content on your social media platforms so that it can be a blessing to somebody. Also, do remember that you can subscribe. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, I'll encourage you to do that. It makes a difference in reaching more people with the things that we are talking about together. So really excited about this evening. My wife is also very ready. She says, can't wait. And my mom is in the house as well. She says, I am present, sir. And Aina Fiona says, I cannot wait. So really excited. I cannot wait as well. Do remember to like, share, and subscribe. So we're diving into a series of leadership conversations that I am calling Shape. And why did I call it Shape? Because I believe every single one of us is built uniquely by God to serve others and make a difference in the world. And I think it is an awesome journey of discovering who God has made us and how he has shaped us, how God has built us so that we can make a difference. And I know that you want to make a difference in the world. So I'm passionate about coming alongside you so we can help you right here to understand how you have been shaped, how you have been built to make a difference. And so, ladies and gentlemen, really excited about this next series of leadership conversations. Abby has joined in. He says, excited. We too are excited. Remember to share on any one of your platforms so that people can join in the conversation. So really so excited. I want us right now to help me welcome my guest, Pastor Ken, who is joining us right now. Pastor Ken, I hope you are good and ready to go. Pastor Ken, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. It's an awesome privilege to be here with you, Pastor Brian. I am looking forward to having an amazing conversation, especially on this topic of leadership. It's going to be a
All
great
right.
time. Thank you.
Amazing. Really looking forward to hearing you, Pastor Ken. Just waiting for your video to come up in a few moments, but I know that it will be popping up real soon. Um, all right. Pastor Ken, feel free to unmute your mic there as well. So excited to have you here. Natalia Mone is welcoming you. She says, welcome, Pastor Ken. And Arthur says, Pastor Ken. And Edith says, yay. And Alexander says, awesome. So really looking forward. There you go, Pastor Ken. So good to see you.
Good to be here.
Natalia Kone is saying, yeah, welcome, Pastor Ken. It's going to be an awesome time as we have this conversation. And we're going to start out by jumping into just a couple of things, Pastor Ken, and then we'll release the guys to also ask some questions that they have. Now, Pastor Ken, to some of the people here, they know you very, very well, but there are some to whom you are new. But we want
Yep.
to just hear a little bit about you, Pastor Ken. Who is Pastor Ken?
So, my name is Kenneth. I am married to Trisha. We have four lovely children, 13-year-olds and a 13-year-old, and an 11-year-old, an 8 and a 4-year-old. We live in Makindye. We are in Kampala, Uganda. And we are blessed and honored to be pastors at Watoto Church. We're also business people. I'm an entrepreneur. I love business. I believe God has called us to do business, to serve people through business and the work that we do on a daily basis. So yeah, it's a little bit about Ken.
Awesome. Look at what Arthur says. He says, I hope Pastor Ken will have the opportunity of doing his car jump, jumping seated as he might be, face blue, smiling. No, it's great to have you here, Pastor Ken. And you're an
Great
awesome
to be
pastor,
here.
you're an awesome husband, you're an awesome father. And so it's great to have you here as we dive into a leadership conversation on Shape. And you get to be a very first guest on Shape. And so
Very
such a
good.
joy, such a privilege to have you. And you're a fountain of
Great.
wisdom. So I cannot wait to hear all that you have in store for us. Pastor Ken, would you take just a couple of minutes to just share with us what is your leadership journey? You're an awesome leader. You're a person that people look up to. But what's your leadership journey? How did you become the leader that you are today?
Okay, thank you, Brian. I think I would honestly say that my leadership journey was not intentional. I never set out to be a leader. I just have a passion for people. I have a passion for helping people to fulfill God's purpose for their lives. This is really what has driven me to work with people, to lead, I find myself in situations where I feel like I need to influence people towards a certain purpose and a certain, calling for their lives. And so I feel like what has brought me to where I am has been a passion for purpose, a passion for, and I would say it started from my own journey. I remember I gave my life to Christ at as 18 years old, and one of the things that hit me at that age was an overwhelming sense that I had wasted 18 years of my life. Now, I don't know why, but I'm very conscious about time and about, I don't know why, but I am very, very conscious about time. If there's anything that my wife and I argue about the most is timekeeping. So I always had this thing, 18 years of my life have gone to a life that was, empty and pursuit of material things. And so it drove me into a very quick and deep pursuit of, Lord, okay, why have you put me on this earth? What is my purpose? And then when that became a bit clear, it started to hit me that everyone around me must be like me. They must have a purpose. They must have a reason they exist. And so it's incredibly critical that they discover what that purpose is, and and then do it, because there's one thing to discover it, it's another to do it. And so for me, I think that's what really led me to pursue leadership and be available. I remember the first time I was asked to lead, I actually said no, because I felt like my goal was to lead 12 people, and now they were asking me to lead 1,000 people. And I remember saying, hey, I was aiming at getting a bicycle and using that to help me move, and you've given me an 18-wheeler. And so I honestly think that my leadership journey began because of wanting to serve people, and I realized that the only way I can do it is by, unfortunately for me, being in front. I would have loved to be at the back and help people without them even ever knowing me, but I had to do it at the front. Yeah, so
Amazing. Amazing, Pastor Ken. And I've seen you, you love people, you believe in people, you give people a chance. You even with the people that people might think, I'm not so sure. There is some gold in them, and you see that gold, and you're willing to sort of come alongside them and say, let's give them a chance and see what is there. And so Halima is saying, excited to learn from you, Pastor Ken. Arthur again says, Pastor Ken, everyone around me must have a purpose. They must discover it. And that's Pastor Ken's life passion. So excited to hear from you, Pastor Ken, as we continue our conversation on Shape. But as we start out, uh, I mean, leadership is one of those concepts or subjects that is written about so much. People have talked about it. It is taught widely. You probably won't find any shortage of leadership. But in your experience, having walked your journey as a leader at every level, a father, a husband, a pastor, a business leader, um, would you help us understand from your journey, what is leadership? What is leadership in your experience and through your life journey?
Thank you, Pastor Brian. I think that that question has been asked, and there are very many answers out there about what leadership is. Maybe I would say I've loved two definitions. I think the one that we all know is by John Maxwell, where he says leadership is influence. But then I loved the definition also from Henry Blackaby in his book, where he says that leadership is moving people towards God's agenda for their lives. I loved that because I think for me it brings in an aspect of purpose, of eternity, of a divine connection to where we are supposed to be going. And so, if I was to create my own, I would probably say that leadership is influencing, guiding individuals or groups of people towards achieving a goal. And hopefully, for me, that hopefully that goal is an eternal goal or with an eternal purpose, leading people towards God's agenda. I think for me that's it, because every other, if we move people towards material wealth, then to what end? What does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? So if we can move people towards an agenda that not only is profitable here on earth, but is profitable in heaven, boy, we will have. For me, I think that is leadership. Yeah.
I love that. I love that eternity perspective, where what matters at the end of the day is that we didn't just move them onto anything, but we moved them onto God's agenda for their
Yeah.
lives. And that's
Yeah.
amazing, because there is a bigger purpose for all our lives. God has made us for
It's true.
something bigger. Actually discovering that is really what life is about. And I love that you bring that eternal perspective, because one day this life will pass, and then we will stand before the one who created us and gave us this purpose. Pastor Ken, would you
Sure.
help us understand? Because people might think that leadership is overrated. Everyone's trying to be a leader. Everyone's trying to help
Yeah.
others become leaders. But does leadership matter? Does
Good.
leadership actually matter? Help us just delve a bit into whether leadership actually matters.
That's so good. That's a very good question. I think leadership matters. And anyone who thinks otherwise, they've not opened their eyes to see. Because when the Bible says, when good men do nothing, we have challenges, because the wrong leaders rise up. And where the leader goes, so does the people. And so it matters what kind of leader comes into power or becomes the head of an organization. I think leadership can shape direction. It can shape culture. Leadership is sometimes what makes or breaks organizations, teams, and communities. When we look at the Old Testament, we see when a good king rose up, the city or the nation was blessed. And when a bad king rose up, confusion came about. And then we also see it today, in a normal leadership, whether you are, someone who works in a department. When you have a department head that has clarity of purpose, clarity of vision, they are for people, they are not for themselves. They have come to empower people and not use people. You'll find that that department will thrive, or that organization will thrive. And so there is a saying that everything rises and falls on leadership. And it's true. Whether we believe it or like it or not, it does matter, because again, wields power to implement whatever has come to, whether it's policies or what. So if they wield power, how they use that power matters. And so the quality of that person matters, because then it speaks into the quality of the decisions they are going to make, the quality of the direction they are going to have. So leadership absolutely matters. It
Wow.
matters.
Amazing. 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 Wow. A couple of comments coming in, Pastor Ken, because of what you're sharing. Here, someone saying, moving people, Nandi is saying, moving people towards God's agenda for their lives. And that's why leadership exists. Joel is just agreeing with you. She's saying, that's so true, Pastor Ken. Leadership actually does matter. And so, guys, continue to bring in your comments, continue to bring in your thoughts and what you're hearing from Pastor Ken. Pastor Ken is just resetting his video right now as it catches up there, but he's available to join us again. Pastor Ken, people are enjoying what you're saying here. You're teaching them well, and you know what? Leadership actually does matter, and like you said, where there is no good leadership, there is chaos and problems, and actually, so leadership matters. And so helping people discover God's purpose for them actually matters. Because when people don't discover God's purpose for them, you have nothing short of a purposeless people, and without purpose, people cast off his name. And so leadership does matter. Thank you so much. Pastor Ken, there's this question as well, as we do this journey of leadership, and for everyone that I know is listening in and they're like, man, I want to be the best leader that I can be. Just the first, sort of step in discovering leadership is in this question that I want to ask you. Are leaders born or are leaders made? Because this is a debate that goes on all the time. Are leaders
That's so
born
true.
or are leaders made?
Gosh, that is such a good question. Very, very good question, because I believe we all wrestle sometimes with that question. Some people just seem to be naturally flowing with leadership skills and abilities, and then others, it's a struggle. They really struggle with leadership and some of these things. But I believe that leaders can be both born, but they can also be made. Leaders can be made. While some people may have a natural gifting and traits for leadership, leadership can be developed. It can be honed. It can come through education. It can come through experience. It can come through self-improvement efforts. Some of us have not always been where we are. We are not where we completely want to be in our leadership capacity, but we've not always had the audacity to either confront people or be clear with vision. And so you might have inherent gifts and you're a born leader, you're very charismatic, but we have also seen people that generally are not, they love to be in the background, but because the need has arisen, they train, they self-improve, and they become incredibly great leaders. So I believe it's both. They can
It's
be
born.
born, they can also be made. Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you. So for the guys that are in the chat section, be encouraged, and everyone listening in, leaders are both
Yes.
made and born. And that's very encouraging to
It's
know
true.
that we can learn leadership and that we can grow into leadership, but that there's also a call and a gift of leadership that's available in people's lives, and that we actually don't have to shy away from it. It's the call of God that's on our lives, and something we can rise up to and actually step into. Thank you. And so I'm going to ask you one more question, Pastor Ken, and then I know the guys in the chat section
Sure.
are going to begin to drop their questions in there. So, guys, feel free to drop your questions in there. Just this question, Pastor Ken: what are the most critical traits of a leader? Because people want to be leaders, but they say, man, where do I need to really win as a leader? And what do I need to be able to show? What do I need to be able to have? What do I need to be able to carry in terms of those traits of a leader?
It's very good, very, very good question. I think, and when you asked that question, the first thing that came to my mind is to start with, the more human side of leadership, to have empathy. But then I realized that really the most important thing about leadership is to have vision. As a leader, you really need to know where you're taking people. You need to have a clear goal or path where you are taking people, and that goal must be inspiring. Where the vision that you are communicating must be inspiring. Number one, I think it's it's dangerous when you have a leader who has no vision, who is not aware of the direction where to go. I mean, that's the number one thing people will expect. And then I think, of course, the next is that you should be able to communicate that vision and communicate it effectively in such a way that the people that you are communicating to buy into that vision. They own the vision. It stops being yours and now it becomes theirs. It's our vision. It's where we want to go, you know. And then I believe that the other thing that you need is empathy, understanding and valuing the perspectives of others, because as a leader you don't know it all. You're not the best of the whole team. You're not the most skilled. You don't even have to be. Most times as leaders we're good at one thing, but there are guys that are incredible at others. And so being able to value perspective and other people's needs, and being able to have a certain human side of who we are. So because most times most visionary people are also very choleric people. They are task oriented guys, and unfortunately that causes us to stumble over people as we get, because we must get to where we need to go.
Mm,
Yeah. So for me, vision, communication of that vision is critical. Empathy is very, very critical. And then of course a certain aspect of character, and within character I would say integrity is key. It's incredibly important that you must have integrity. You must be a person of integrity. You must be a person who is accountable. You can't, because again, you're not the know-it-all. Just because you're the one leading doesn't
mhm,
mean that every one of your decisions are correct. So it's
mm,
important that there's some form of accountability to your actions. So for me, those things I think are critical. I'm sure there are
mm,
many, but if I was to pick out
mm,
a key: vision,
mm.
communicating that vision well, empathy, integrity, and accountability. Those things are incredibly important. Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful. I love that. Vision, communication, empathy, integrity. Um, Man, you can make an acronym out of that: vice, and vision, integrity, communication, and empathy. But I love that it balances both the skills that you need, but also the character side. And this is so important. And friends listening in and watching, I mean, uh, these are some of the key areas where you need to win as a leader. Do you have a vision? And some people may
Yeah.
still be wondering, Pastor Ken, where does vision come from? Where does vision
Good.
come from? I mean, communication. How can I be better at
Yes.
my communication?
Very
Empathy. What
true.
does empathy look like? Integrity. And Pastor Ken, if you can, and just be able to dive into this, I mean, it could be even just a minute each.
Yeah.
Something on
Yeah.
vision. Where does vision come from? Where does someone find
Yeah.
vision?
Yeah, I think for me, vision comes from, first of all, connecting with God. And like we were defining what leadership is, it's moving people towards God's agenda. It's knowing that everybody has a purpose. Now, when we want to discover the purpose of a thing, we go to its maker. We go to its creator. I think for me, vision comes from communing with God. It comes from a place where we are passionate about it. It's something that God deposits on our hearts. When I look at my children, I can have my own vision for them. I can begin to think, there's something I didn't do and I want them to do it. Or I can say, Lord, what do you want for these young people? Where do you want to take them? What do you want for my daughter? And allow Him to just download that vision. So for me, I think vision comes from God. He's the one who gives us that force, that direction, the purpose, because He's the one who created us.
Mm,
And then communication, I think communication can be learned.
mm,
Communication is a skill.
mm,
It's something that takes time, and learning and study, and then practice. You can read all you want, but until you get up and speak, you won't
mm,
know. So
mm,
get up, communicate, get some feedback, make it better, go back, communicate. So I
mm.
think for me that's where that comes from. And then of course empathy needs to come from a place of humility. Okay,
Right.
knowing that first of all, you're not the only one who knows everything. That God has empowered all of us. We are a body. I like the definition that Paul uses, that we're a body. And Paul even talks about there are parts of the body that none of us gets up and says, wow, look at my spleen. No one even sees it. Okay? But if you get rid of your spleen, your body will be in incredible pain if you will even continue living. So it's just that humility, that knowledge of, I am a leader only by God's grace, but also this person has been placed next to me for a purpose. As much as Moses was the leader, he needed a Joshua to hold his hand so a battle could be won. So it's that place of humility, of knowing, it's only by grace that I'm here. And so God can speak through someone else. And then the area of accountability
Integrity,
for
yes.
me and integrity is just the awareness that we are human. I like what the Bible says, that the heart of man is desperately wicked. And for me to have integrity, I need to first of all be true. Number one, if what I do in secret needs to be the same. I need to be one
Right.
before people. I cannot say one thing and do another. I can't say do as I say, but not as I do. I must live out exactly what I am doing. And so for me, integrity and accountability are tied in, because sometimes as human beings, we need to know that we're going to error, no matter how good we are. And so accountability is that guardrail. Accountability is that guardrail that we set up because we want to stay walking a journey of integrity. And so ensuring that your actions are checked, because power corrupts, leadership can corrupt. When people begin saying, wow, what an amazing leader, you can begin to think your decisions are next to God's decisions, and yet you are still a human being.
Right.
So for me, that's the some of the things that where that would come from. Accountability for me would be find men of repute, find people around you that either have gone a journey ahead of you who can check what you're saying. So that I always tell friends that it's great to begin, but the most important thing is finishing strong. How do you do that as a leader? It's that integrity, it's the character, it's the accountability. And I'm sure Pastor Brian, you are an amazing leader. I don't want to cheat some of these guys and give them less, but you can add to some of these things, and I know we can learn even more, because leadership is one of those incredible things that I've seen you do naturally. It almost seems like it just comes naturally. So, but that's just some of the things I was thinking. Please feel free to add. Yeah.
I tell you, no, I'm sitting here, I'm learning. I'm learning as well, by the way, Pastor Ken. And I want to thank you. I think that is so critical that we get to understand, as people want to really thrive in our leadership. We must have a vision. We must learn to communicate so that we can connect. We must make sure that we are empathetic, that we can do life with people and walk a journey with people, but also be people of integrity, because that's what makes trust possible, and trust makes leadership possible. So
Yes.
thank you so much, Pastor Ken. Thank you so much, guys. I know there are comments coming in the chat section. We're beginning to land this session. We're about to close. But I like what Other is saying here, is a leader's role is to propel those that were not born leaders
Very
to rise to the challenge of becoming leaders. Born a leader, make others one. Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for that, Arthur. Guys, could you to drop those comments in the chat section right there? We're beginning to close. I wonder, does anyone have a question as well? I know you're drinking this in. I know you're writing. Some guys are saying, I have my notebook here. So do you have comments
good.
or questions for Pastor Ken as well? We will make sure he answers those questions. And just one more, Pastor Ken. One of the biggest things I've found is this: when you talk about vision, communication, empathy, and integrity, what is successful communication with the people that you are leading? Because we as leaders automatically, because we get it, we think people should get it. And when people don't get it, we come down on them like a ton of bricks. How do we help leaders thrive in their communication so that they rise up to be those leaders that God wants them to be? Just quickly share with us there on the thing of how we can really communicate in such a way that we move people towards God's agenda.
It's very good. I feel like if there's an area that I too personally struggle with is the ability to communicate well and get people in, moving quickly. I find that sometimes you have to communicate repeatedly. You almost have to say the same thing over and over again. But one way that I am learning is, to know that I've communicated, of course, effectively, is if people, first of all, if people can repeat what I've said to them. If I, have communicated something and then I ask, what did I say? What have you had me say? And then, of course, the other thing that I'm learning is to say, okay, what do you hear the action would be for you? What action would you pick up from that? Because if someone can, first of all, say it back to me, and it's clear, and then they can also distill the action they feel the communication is driving them towards, then I feel like there's something has happened. At least there's an understanding of what has been said. But also, I have learned to simplify, just simplify things, and not leave things hanging. So sometimes we come and speak at a very strategic level to people. We speak, at a vision level, but sometimes it's important to break it down. For me, at this level, what does that mean? How practically, when I walk away from here, what do I need to do?
Yeah.
And I think while we're preaching, that's one of our biggest wrestles. Those are things that we really wrestle with. When I bring this truth out, what are the next steps for this individual? What are they going to do as they walk away from here? How do they walk away with things that they can do? Head, heart, and then the hands. What am I going to do? So for me, that's the way I test. Have I communicated? Is someone able to repeat what I've said? Are they able to distill at a personal level the action for them? Yeah, I hope I've answered the
Amazing.
question correctly.
No, you really have. I love that.
Good.
That if someone can repeat what you've said, and is able to distill an action that they can take that's going to move them towards what you've communicated, then you truly have communicated. I love that.
That's true.
I love that. And the idea of
Sorry,
simplifying.
I
Yeah.
just remember this funny thing that happens to us after you've shared the sermon or preached, and someone comes and say, "Powerful message, powerful," and then say, "So what one thing did you pick?" It's like, no, it was just powerful, but they're unable to pick out, one or two things, and you haven't communicated. Yeah,
Exactly. Exactly. I just love that. And the idea of
yeah,
simplifying is so powerful. Like you said, we sometimes speak almost in a language or in a measure that people don't understand, and we think we've communicated because
it's
that's
true.
where we are living. And yet we need to bring it
It's
down
true.
to where people are
It's
at.
true.
Wow, a couple of questions coming in for you, Pastor Ken here.
Okay.
Natalia is asking, what are the attributes of a servant leader? Wow. And how can one fuel the desire to grow as a servant leader?
It's good. I love that. Well, servant leadership is really it's that aspect of leadership where we are taking on leadership not for ourselves, but for others' benefit. And I liked what one of the comments that came through, that being a leader is helping others to also develop their leadership. We know that when we are walking into a leadership role, it's to empower others. It's for me, that's one of the attributes, that you are an
Mm,
empowering leader. You are
yeah.
not a leader who is holding power, but you're a leader who gives away power, who raises other leaders, who is more interested in the development and growth of others than yourself. So
Mm,
some of those are some of the attributes for me of a servant leader.
sure.
And then how you can fuel the desire to grow as a servant leader, I think it's to also have role models, people that you look up to and see who have done it well. For me, I mean, the quickest example I can give you and most impactful has been Pastor Gary. And I know there are many. There are many that are far. We can talk about Nelson Mandela. We can talk about Henry Luko Rombi, people who have led well and then passed on the mantle. I think the first time when I heard about Pastor Gary saying, I'm going to, hand over leadership, I thought what is that? Like, that's never happened,
Mm,
but then he did. And I remember in a meeting when we were, we were talking with him, and I remember saying this to him. I said, if you have ever led For me, if I've ever seen if someone lead well, it is in this time of the transition that somebody
Mm,
is able to hand over, do
mm,
something great, and then step away from it because that's they have come to serve others and empower them and trust them with that leadership. So
mm,
how can one
mm,
fuel the desire to grow? I think get some really good leaders that you look up to. Get some
mm,
leaders who have traits. I'm modeling servant leadership and look up
mm,
to them, see what they're doing and emulate
mm.
it. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. Arthur comments, he says, without God, you have no vision. Without vision, you're simply guessing your way around, which is so true.
Yes.
Alexander is saying leadership is a choice, not a position. That's amazing. And
Good.
thank you, Pastor Ken, for reminding us. So, two questions, and then we're going to close today. Halima asks, how do you remain motivated as a leader in order to finish strong? How do we build strong and sustainable teams that can carry on the vision even without us?
Very good. How do you remain motivated? I think find your fuel, and I like that. For me, I read a book, and this guy said, find your fuel, find the thing that fuels your leadership. So, for me, it is number one, staying connected with God, because God is the source of my passion for leading, and He is the only source that cannot be quenched by anything physical around us.
Mm,
He is not going to be discouraged. He will not. The Bible says, "The one who watches over Israel does not sleep or slumber." So for me, when I am feeling exhausted and tired, I plug into God. I spend time in worship. I spend time in prayer, and it's almost like someone cleaning a glass window, and all of a sudden clarity comes and
mm,
vision is refueled. So for me, that is it. The other is reading books of
mm,
people that are incredibly good at what they're doing, and every time I
mm,
do that, I have found that my vision, my purpose, my desire for learning and growing is fueled. So I think for me, very, very quickly, it would be one, plugging in with God. Two is reading, studying. They say a leader is a reader. If you are not reading, if you're not consistently improving yourself, that will be a
mm,
challenge. Next question, how
mm,
do we build strong and sustainable teams that can carry on the vision even without us? Many things. First of all, have a clear vision, very,
mm,
very clear, clarify it from a strategic level to a very, very tactical level, so that people know. Yeah, the example of NASA, where the guy who was sweeping was able to say, I am, as I sweep, I am putting someone at the moon. That level of clarity. And then
mm,
create systems. I think
mm,
systems are the one thing that helps us, and we don't have to be there. The system
mm,
works, the
mm,
process, so that we don't need to do anything. Those systems help us. And those
mm,
systems can be systems that help hold people accountable, keep people on track on the
mm,
vision. So for me, those are some quick thoughts on
mm.
how to stay motivated and building strong teams and sustainable ones.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And that idea of systems that can outlast us is such a powerful thing. Thank you so much, Pastor Ken. This is the very last one. Arthur asks, Pastor Ken, from your experience, what has been that one weakness or vulnerable point, Achilles heel, that seems to affect most leaders?
Thank you, Arthur. I was fearing that question. um, but I think for me, and it comes in different forms. So sometimes it is people pleasing, other times it's the fear of men. I think that for me is the biggest issue. I think many times we fear to do the right thing because of how people will see us. We are afraid to make the decisions we know we should make because we want to please people. And as a result of that, people are hurt, the right systems are not set in place or enforced. And so for me, that the fear of man, people pleasing in all its forms, that for me is the huge Achilles heel on leadership, in my view.
Wow. Wow, I mean, I love that. When you're saying that, you reminded me. Jesus made a statement, and I think it's written that way in the Message version. I think I forget the direct scripture quotation, but Jesus said, I did not come to be popular, but true." And I think that's something that's so powerful. The fear of man, and it ends
Wow.
up not only hurting our leadership, but it also hurts others. And I love that you brought that, because our own actually zeal is not only going to affect us, it's actually going to hurt those that we are leading. So thank you so much, Pastor Ken.
It's been a
Nandi
pleasure.
says, find your fuel. I want to
Yeah.
encourage every single one of you to find your fuel so that you can be the
Amen.
leader that God wants you to be. Again, Pastor Ken, I want to thank you so much for being a part of
It's
this.
been a
Friends,
pleasure.
really help you show Pastor Ken appreciation right there in the comment section.
Thank you.
Just thank him and let him know how much of a blessing he has been. I want to thank you
Thank you.
so much, Pastor
Thank
Ken,
you.
for being with us today. It's been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Pastor Ken. I tell you, I've learned lots. I've been encouraged lots, been reminded lots. And I tell you what, friends, your leadership matters. And so take these principles: vision, communication, empathy, integrity. Don't fear man, fear God. Stand up, be bold, be courageous, do what must be done. Because when you thrive in your leadership, the people around you will thrive. Everyone says asante to Pastor Ken Arthur on behalf of the community right there. Friends, I want to thank you so much for being a part of our very first leadership conversation with Pastor Ken Kanzairwe. It's been absolutely amazing. Again, Pastor Ken, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you about what leadership truly is and what those critical traits are that we need. And I want to challenge you: get a moment, listen to this again, make some commitments, personal commitments. What's that one thing you're going to do about what you've learned today that's going to shift your leadership to the next level? We are absolutely committed to helping you become everything that God wants you to become. And so we want to call that leadership and that greatness out of you. I want to thank you, every single one of you, for being here today. Wow, Arthur says, I have taken my fuel for the next route. My mom says, thank you, Pastor Ken. Be blessed. Halima says, thank you so much, Pastor Ken. Nachigu de Sylvia also says, thank you, Pastor Ken. And Alexander also says, thank you, Ken. Absolutely amazing. Thank you guys for being here today. It's meant a lot to me. I want to remind you again, if you haven't, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Share this as well with a friend out there, and I know that it will be a blessing. From us here to you, it is we love you. God bless you, and good night.